It's kind of mind-blowing when you stop and think about how much smarter and more connected everything around us has become.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, from our doorbells to our cars, it's all online now. And that's why cybersecurity has gone from being this sort of niche tech thing to something, well, absolutely fundamental.
Absolutely. It's moved way beyond just protecting our personal data, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, the very infrastructure that underpins our daily lives,
Yeah.
Things like power grids, transport, emergency services, they're all interconnected.
Right.
And that makes them potential targets. The implications of a successful attack are really pretty significant.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we're digging into today. We're focusing on cybersecurity for critical infrastructure and exploring how this rapidly evolving field of AI engineering fits into keeping these essential services secure. We've got some really fascinating stuff to unpack here.
We do, yeah. We've been looking at best practices and recommendations from CISA, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Mm-hmm. We've also dug into insights from SimplyLearn on the whole career landscape of AI engineering, which is booming.
Right.
And to get a feel for the future, we even looked at some interesting discussions happening over on Reddit about, what's next in tech.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really get under the hood of this intersection between cybersecurity and these cutting-edge technologies like AI and figure out how they're shaping the future of protecting the vital systems we all, rely on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's start with this. Why is cybersecurity such a pressing concern for critical infrastructure right now?
Well, at its core, as CISA really emphasizes, it's about ensuring continuous communication for public safety agencies. Think about 9/11 services, ECCs or PSAP they call them.
Right, emergency communication centers.
Exactly. For these places, keeping those voice and data links up and running without interruption is absolutely mission critical for saving lives. Any break in those connections, well, it can have dire consequences.
And CISA isn't just highlighting the vulnerability, are they? They've actually developed a cyber resiliency toolkit specifically to help these public safety agencies assess their current defenses and figure out how to improve against disruptions. What kind of tools are we talking about?
Yeah, the toolkit really focuses on proactive planning and preparation. It stresses having really well-defined cyber incident response plans, like what do you do when an attack happens?
Okay.
It also emphasizes recovery plans, how to get back up fast, and these continuity of operations plans, the co-plan.
LUPI plans, right.
Yeah, they basically outline how essential functions can keep going even during a disruption. And these aren't just documents you file away. They need regular updates, practice through risk assessments, ongoing staff training.
Yeah.
It's like building muscle memory for cyber emergencies.
Like rehearsing a fire drill. You hope you never need it, but you're ready if you do.
Precise.
And CISA even suggests that ECCs and PSAs take advantage of their free cyber hygiene services, like vulnerability scanning and something called Get Your Stuff Off Search. What's the idea behind that one?
Yeah, Get Your Stuff Off Search. You can sort of think of it as minimizing your digital footprint, your exposure.
Okay.
It's about reducing the amount of publicly available information that attackers could potentially use to understand your systems or find vulnerabilities. It's like tidying up your digital storefront to make it less interesting to burglars. For critical infrastructure, that can really reduce the attack surface.
That makes a lot of sense. Less visible info means fewer ways in for the bad guys. And it's not just emergency services facing these bigger risks, is it? Our cities themselves are getting smarter. And as CISA points out, this brings a whole new layer of cybersecurity challenges. What makes smart cities such attractive targets?
Well, smart cities collect and process just huge amounts of valuable data, everything from traffic flows, energy use, even personal information.
Right.
That alone makes them tempting for cyber criminals after money or, nation states looking for intelligence. But maybe even more importantly, the very interconnected nature of these smart city systems creates this really complex web of potential entry points and vulnerabilities. Imagine trying to secure not just one network, but maybe hundreds, thousands of interconnected devices and systems.
Wow. So it's not just one weak link, but potentially loads of interconnected weak spots. What kind of real-world disruptions could we actually see if a cyber attack on a smart city worked? It's got to be more than just traffic lights going haywire.
Oh, absolutely. A successful attack could cripple essential services people rely on: daily power, water, public transport, even waste collection.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you could see Huge financial losses from downtime and recovery costs, massive data breaches, leaking citizens' personal info, and just a total erosion of public trust in these smart systems.
Okay.
And in a worst-case scenario, messing with critical infrastructure could, even lead to actual physical harm.
And CISA also flags that the threats don't just come from outside hackers. There are big risks within the tech supply chain itself. The ICT vendors that smart cities rely on for their hardware and software. What are the vulnerabilities there?
Yeah, the concern is that vulnerabilities, whether they're put there deliberately, which is scary, or just result from poor security practices by the vendor, can be exploited.
Right.
This could lead to sensitive data theft, a loss of confidence in the whole smart city setup, or even widespread system failures if critical parts are compromised or just become unavailable. It really comes down to the trust we have to place in these third-party providers.
So how do we even start thinking about securing something as massive and complicated as a smart city? It sounds like an immense challenge.
The really foundational principle is secure by design.
Secure by design, okay.
Security needs to be baked into the system right from the start, from the architecture and development of new smart tech, especially when you're integrating it with older legacy systems.
Yeah.
This involves using what's called defense in depth. Think of it like creating multiple layers of security controls. If an attacker gets past one layer, they hit another one.
Defense in depth, like having multiple locks, alarms, maybe a guard dog for a building, not just one flimsy lock on the door.
Exactly that kind of thinking.
And I remember reading about the principle of least privilege. How does that fit into securing a smart city?
Oh, that's crucial. Least privilege is all about limiting potential damage if a breach does happen. It means you only give each user, each device, each application the absolute minimum level of access and permissions they need to do their specific job. Nothing more.
Okay.
So if one part gets compromised, the attacker's ability to move sideways through the network and access other sensitive stuff is hopefully really restricted.
That makes intuitive sense. If a simple traffic sensor gets hacked, it shouldn't give the attacker the keys to the whole city's power grid control system.
Precisely.
And it's not just the digital world, is it? Physical security of the actual smart city assets must play a big role too.
Absolutely. Securing the physical stuff, the sensors themselves, control panels, communication hubs against theft, vandalism, unauthorized physical access, it's just as critical as securing the digital networks. Someone physically tampering with a sensor could feed bad data into the system, leading to wrong decisions or even dangerous situations.
Right. And when it comes to the software that runs all these smart city systems, what are the key security things to think about? CISA mentions setting security requirements for software suppliers. What does that actually involve?
It means cities, or any organization really, need to set clear and pretty strict security expectations for the software they buy.
Okay.
This includes making sure vendors follow a secure software development lifecycle, have solid processes for finding and responsibly disclosing vulnerabilities in their code, and crucially, provide timely security updates and patches.
Patches are key.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And this is where something called the Software Bill of Materials, or XBOM, comes in. Yeah, think of it like a detailed ingredients list for a piece of software. It lists all the components inside. This lets organizations track known vulnerabilities in those components and figure out their risk exposure much more easily.
An SBOM, like a nutritional label for software,
Right.
telling you exactly what's inside,
Yeah.
that makes managing risks much clearer.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Okay, so what about the hardware and all those interconnected IoT devices that are basically the foundation of smart cities? Are there specific supply chain security worries there?
Oh, yeah. Significant concerns. Organizations need visibility into where their IoT devices and hardware components actually come from. They need to understand the manufacturing process, be aware of any reliance on third-party services or software that's embedded inside the hardware, and they also need to know how these devices handle data, how it's stored, how it's sent, how it's protected while it's being used. Vulnerabilities anywhere along that chain can introduce risks.
So it's really about having a deep understanding of your entire tech stack from the ground up. And I guess that extends to managed service providers and cloud providers too.
Precisely. When you're working with these external providers, you've got to set clear security requirements in contracts and service level agreements, SLAs.
Right.
Organizations need to understand the risks of relying on third-party infrastructure and make sure their own security standards are met. For cloud services, carefully reviewing data security clauses and understanding that shared responsibility model, what the cloud provider secures versus what the customer is responsible for, that's absolutely critical.
Okay, so we're focusing a lot on prevention, which makes sense. But what happens when, the inevitable occurs, an attack gets through? CISA emphasizes backups, not just digital ones, but even manual operational capabilities. Why is that so important?
Having comprehensive and crucially regularly tested backups is just fundamental for cyber resilience.
Tested, right.
Tested. This includes not just backing up critical IT systems and data, but also having well-documented manual procedures for essential functions. If a really sophisticated cyber attack takes down automated systems, being able to switch to manual operation, even if it's slower, can keep essential services running.
Okay.
And, critically, IT backups should be stored offline and in an isolated environment. That means they're not constantly connected to the main network.
Yeah.
This massively reduces the risk from ransomware, which often specifically targets and encrypts any backups it can find.
Offline and isolated backups, that sounds like a vital defense against something like ransomware, a real worst-case scenario.
It really is.
And finally, CISA stresses workforce training on both the automated and the manual procedures. Why is the human element still so critical here?
Well, even with highly automated smart city tech, the people managing and operating these systems need to be ready to respond effectively when things go wrong. This means thorough training, not just on the day-to-day automated stuff, but also on those manual backup procedures and the steps needed to restore services after an attack. Regular training, drills, they're essential to make sure staff can react quickly and correctly under pressure and that they understand the latest threats. And it's worth mentioning, CISA's guidance here is informed by experts from places like Microsoft, IBM, Nozomi Networks. It really highlights that tackling these complex issues is a collaborative effort.
It really underlines that cybersecurity isn't just a tech problem, it's a people and process problem too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've explored the growing need for cybersecurity, especially for critical infrastructure. Now let's zoom in on a specific high-risk area, 9/11 systems. Why are PSAPs and ECCs such attractive targets for cyber attackers?
Well, as CISA puts it very clearly, the work of public safety answering planes and emergency communication centers is just absolutely vital for public health and safety.
Can't get much more critical than that.
Exactly. Any disruption to these services could have immediate, potentially fatal consequences. It's this critical life-saving role that makes them such high-value targets. The potential impact of a successful attack is just devastating, far more than hitting less critical systems.
And it's not just theoretical, is it? CISA talks about specific threats like telephony denial of service or TDS attacks. Those sound particularly nasty. How do they work?
Yeah, TDS attacks are basically designed to just overwhelm the call centers, the PSTs and ECCs, flood them with calls so legitimate emergency calls can't get through.
Wow.
CISA highlights a couple of really concerning real-world examples. Back in 2017, there was the Arizona mobile botnet incident. Some individual used social media to spread malware that turned people's phones into a botnet.
Oh, wow.
And these infected phones just repeatedly called 911, massively disrupting services in the Phoenix area.
That's terrifying your own phone without you knowing being used to cripple 911.
It is. And there was another incident in Texas, also in 2017, involving a pre-programmed landline. Yes, a malfunctioning phone in a hotel elevator in Houston just continuously dialed 911 for 10 hours straight.
10 hours.
10 hours. Generated thousands of calls, basically flooded the system.
Yeah.
Now, that one was deemed accidental, but CISA points out malicious actors could absolutely exploit vulnerabilities in unsecured devices like that to launch intentional TDS attacks.
So these attacks can come from different places, exploit different tech. What are some of the common methods used in TDS?
Well, as we saw in Arizona, mobile phones, especially when they're part of a coordinated botnet controlled by malware, can just generate huge volumes of nuisance calls.
Right.
Even non-subscriber mobile phones.
Yeah.
Old phones without a plan that can still call 911 can be used together to flood the system, often without providing any traceable info.
Oh.
Attackers can also exploit voice over IP, VoIP services to spoof caller IDs, make malicious calls look like they're coming from legitimate numbers, potentially getting past some security filters. Yeah, and even compromised PBXs, those private phone systems businesses use, can be hijacked and programmed to just repeatedly dial emergency numbers.
It sounds like a really complex threat needing a layered defense. What kind of best practices does CISA recommend for fighting back against these TDS risks?
Well, CISA, working with groups like SafeCom and NCSEAKey, emphasizes several key strategies. One big one is maintaining call overflow reserve, basically having extra phone line capacity ready to go if call volumes suddenly spike from an attack.
Okay, like surge capacity.
Exactly. Another crucial step is setting up continuity of operations agreements with neighboring ECCs and PSPs. So if one center gets knocked out, another can take over their calls temporarily.
Backup centers. Makes sense.
Yeah, and strong collaboration and sharing information with private sector partners, especially the phone companies, is essential for both preparing for and responding effectively to these attacks.
Collaboration and redundancy, those seem to be recurring themes for resilience.
They really are.
Now, let's shift to what happens after a cyber incident hits. What's a typical timeline for discovering and responding to an attack on something critical, like a 9/11 system? Is it immediate?
Well, CISA data suggests that organizations might not even realize they've been compromised for a surprisingly long time, potentially as long as 18 months in some sophisticated attacks.
18 months. Wow.
Yeah, and even after they first detect something fishy, the malicious software might have been lurking on the network for weeks or months before it actually does its damage. Often what seem like minor glitches can actually be early signs of a much bigger coordinated attack. A big challenge early on is that staff might not be trained to spot the subtle signs, or they might accidentally destroy crucial forensic evidence trying to fix the immediate problem.
Right.
And getting the right resources and expertise might not happen instantly either.
18 months to even realize you're under attack. That really highlights how stealthy some threats are. So in those critical first, say, 8 hours after an incident is suspected or confirmed, what are the absolute must-do actions?
Okay, according to CISA, first step is immediately use any existing risk assessments you have to figure out the potential impact on critical operations. Prioritize which systems need fixing first.
Triage.
Exactly. Setting up a clear internal communication and reporting structure is vital so information flows properly. Any unauthorized access needs to be blocked immediately and logged carefully for later analysis. Crucially, change system admin passwords right away. Those are prime targets. If possible, isolate the suspected threat in a controlled sandbox environment.
A sandbox, like a digital quarantine.
Yeah, pretty much. A safe place to watch what it does without letting it harm the live network. And it's also essential to quickly notify the right authorities, local, state, federal, like the FBI and CISA, to share info and maybe get help.
The sandbox idea really helps visualize that, contain the threat to study it safely. And is it true you shouldn't just immediately shut down affected systems? So I feel like I heard that can actually mess up the investigation.
That's a really critical point.
Yeah.
Yeah, just pulling the plug on a compromised machine can wipe out volatile data in its memory RAM.
Ah, okay.
And that memory could hold vital clues about the attack, the methods used, even hints about the attackers. The general advice is to isolate the affected devices from the network first. Stop them talking to anything else, rather than powering them off immediately.
Isolate, don't necessarily obliterate.
Right. And preserving system logs, which record what happened on the system, is also crucial for forensic analysis later. And like we said, setting up dedicated meeting spaces, physical or virtual, for the response team to coordinate and documenting every single action taken that's essential for an organized response.
Okay, so during that first crucial day of a cyber incident, what should organizations be prepared for? It sounds like things can escalate incredibly fast.
They certainly can. Organizations might suddenly need to buy new hardware and software to replace compromised systems, which can strain budgets and purchasing processes.
Yeah, I bet.
The risk of accidentally destroying more forensic evidence is still high during this period. Even physical systems, not directly related to communication, like building controls, HVAC, could potentially be affected and need checking. Clear, consistent communication with staff and outside stakeholders is absolutely key to manage expectations and stop panic or rumors spreading.
Right.
If you bring in external cybersecurity experts, remember they need time to get up to speed on your specific systems. So having a clear chain of command and communication lines is vital for working together effectively.
Okay.
Key technical actions on day one usually involve starting to clean up infected IT environments, rebuilding compromised machines from clean backups or images, replacing bad files with good ones from backups, applying security patches to fix known holes, and resetting passwords on all potentially affected user accounts.
Well, to do.
Yeah, and you have to keep monitoring constantly for any signs the attackers are trying to get back in or are reacting to what you're doing.
It sounds incredibly intense, needing both deep tech skills and strong leadership. What about the longer term? How do you manage response and recovery if it goes beyond a day or two?
For incidents that stretch out, CISA advises maintaining really strong strategic coordination as you carefully bring systems back online, making sure it's done securely.
Okay.
If you're still in the containment and eradication phases, actively fighting the threat and kicking it out, Managing your team's resources carefully is essential to avoid burnout and keep the response effective.
Good point. Burnout is real.
Definitely. Conducting a hot wash that's like a debrief session held right after the incident while memories are fresh is incredibly valuable for capturing lessons learned and figuring out how to improve your incident response plans for next time.
Hot wash. I like that.
Yeah. And thoroughly documenting everything about the incident. Indicators of compromise, attacker, TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures. All the log data you collected is crucial. Not just for your own learning, but also to help agencies like the FBI and CISA track down the bad guys.
So it's a continuous cycle. Respond, learn, strengthen defenses. What are some of the key big picture recommendations for building that culture of cyber readiness that CISA talks so much about?
Well, it really has to start with strong engagement from the top, from leadership, making sure cybersecurity incident planning is a clear priority and gets the needed resources and support.
Buy-in from the top.
Absolutely essential.
Sure.
Building and nurturing good relationships with both your internal cyber teams and external partners, and actually involving them in planning and exercises before something happens is key.
Right.
Regularly reviewing and rigorously testing your organization's overall cybersecurity posture to find weaknesses and track improvements is vital. And finally, just maintaining a strong focus on overall operational resilience, the ability to bounce back from any kind of disruption, not just cyber attacks, is paramount.
Makes sense.
And CISA offers valuable free resources like their vulnerability scanning service and that get your stuff off search thing to help organizations proactively get better.
Good resources to know about.
Yeah, and for anyone wanting to dive deeper, there are great online resources. The CISA Public Safety Cybersecurity page, the official 911.gov site, and the big CISA Cyber Resource Hub. Lots of info there.
This is all incredibly vital stuff for anyone involved with critical infrastructure. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and look towards the future specifically, the growing role of AI engineering in cybersecurity and just in tech generally. We saw Statista identified AI engineering as a really in-demand tech role. What exactly does an AI engineer do?
So AI engineers are basically the people who take the artificial intelligence and machine learning models that data scientists develop, and they make them work in the real world, make them practical and scalable.
Right, the implementers?
Exactly. They handle the whole end-to-end process, developing, deploying, and maintaining these AI models across all sorts of industries and applications. Their work essentially bridges that gap between AI research and actual real-world use, putting AI into products and services people use every day.
So what's the typical path to becoming an AI engineer? Is it all about PhDs and super specialized knowledge?
Well, there's no single set path, but Simplilearn outlines some common ways. A strong foundation usually starts with a bachelor's degree in something like computer science, IT, or a related engineering field. That gives you the essential programming, algorithms, data structures background.
Right, the fundamentals.
Yep. While a bachelor's can get you in the door, often a master's degree specializing in AI, machine learning, or something close is recommended for more advanced roles and better career options.
Makes sense.
Getting relevant certifications in AI, machine learning, data science can also be really valuable to show specific skills and prove you're keeping up with how fast things change.
Keeping up is key in AI.
Absolutely. And crucially, getting practical, hands-on experience through projects, internships, maybe contributing to open-source AI projects that's essential to turn academic knowledge into real-world skills.
It sounds like a mix of formal education, continuous learning, because the field moves so fast, and a lot of hands-on practice.
That's a good summary.
And AI engineering isn't just theoretical, right? Simplilearn gave some really cool real-world examples of how it's being used.
Well, absolutely. AI engineering is driving innovation everywhere. For instance, AI on Labs developed Deno AI, an AI platform that's revolutionizing how new antibodies are discovered, speeding up drug development massively.
Wow.
Brainbox AI uses AI to optimize HVAC systems in commercial buildings, leading to big energy savings.
Practical stuff.
Yeah. In defense, Lockheed Martin is putting AI into things like autopilot for drones, making them smarter. Google DeepMind's AlphaChip project showed AI can help design computer chips much faster.
Okay.
And even in public safety, people are exploring using generative AI to optimize how drone networks are used for things like emergency response.
Those are some incredibly varied and high-impact applications. So what does a typical day or week actually look like for an AI engineer? What kind of tasks are they juggling?
It's pretty multifaceted. A common task is taking trained AI models from data scientists and turning them into robust, scalable APIs application programming interfaces.
APIs, right. So other systems can use the AI.
Exactly. They also play a huge role in building and maintaining the infrastructure for getting data in and transforming it efficiently, making sure the AI models have a steady stream of clean, relevant data to learn from.
Data pipelines.
Yep. Automating the whole data science infrastructure, streamlining how models are trained, tested, deployed. That's another key area. They manage the overall AI development and product infrastructure, choosing the right hardware, software tools, cloud services,
Okay.
and, maybe most importantly, AI engineers work really closely with product managers, data scientists, other teams. They have to translate complex tech stuff into plain English and make sure the AI solutions actually meet business needs and user requirements.
It definitely sounds like they need a strong mix of deep technical chops and really good communication skills.
Absolutely. Both are critical.
What are some of the essential technical skills someone aiming to be an AI engineer should focus on?
Okay, technically. Strong programming skills, especially in languages like Python, R, and Java, are fundamental.
Python's huge in AI, right?
Yeah, huge. A solid grasp of math and statistics, especially linear algebra and probability, is crucial to really understand how machine learning and deep learning algorithms work.
Right, the theory behind it.
Yep. Experience with big data tech like Spark, Hadoop, MongoDB is often needed to handle the massive data sets AI models train on. And of course, you need strong knowledge of various machine learning and deep learning algorithms themselves, and the popular open source frameworks like TensorFlow or PyTorch that implement them.
Okay, that's a solid technical list. What about the people skills side? What soft skills are really important for success as an AI engineer?
Strong communication is paramount. You have to collaborate with diverse teams, explain complex ideas to non-tech folks, present findings clearly.
Makes sense.
Excellent problem-solving skills are essential. You're often tackling really tricky, novel challenges in AI development. Domain expertise, actually understanding the industry or business you're applying AI in, helps tailor solutions effectively.
Right, context matters.
It does. Business intelligence skills are valuable for seeing how AI can drive business value. And critical thinking is crucial for evaluating data, interpreting model results, and making smart decisions all through the AI lifecycle.
It definitely sounds demanding, but yeah, potentially very rewarding. Simply Learn even gave some salary insights. What can someone typically expect to earn in AI engineering?
Well, in the U.S., the average salary is reported somewhere in the $100,000 to $150,000 per year range. It can be higher in major tech hubs or for people with more experience.
Okay.
In India, the average is roughly 8 lakh to 15 lakh per year. Again, varying by location, experience, skills. Basically, the high demand for AI engineers globally is driving pretty competitive salaries.
That's definitely encouraging for anyone thinking about this path. And AI engineering isn't the only related career, is it? Simply Learn mentioned a few others in the same ballpark.
Yeah, several closely related paths. You have machine learning engineers who focus maybe more specifically on developing and deploying the predictive models.
Yeah.
Data scientists are involved in the broader process, collecting, analyzing, interpreting big data sets to find insights, which often includes developing AI models.
Right.
And business intelligence developers focus on designing data analysis tools and reports to spot business trends, sometimes using AI tools. These roles often have overlapping skills and can be alternative ways into the AI field.
Good to know there are related options. And a question I'm sure many people wonder about, is it actually possible to become a successful AI engineer without a formal university degree?
Simply Learn touches on this. They acknowledge that while it's theoretically possible to learn the skills through self-study, online courses, boot camps, certifications,
Right, the alternative routes.
it's generally a more challenging path to get into and advance in the field without that strong foundational understanding of computer science, math, and stats that you typically get from a formal degree. A degree often gives a more complete, rigorously tested knowledge base, plus valuable networking, and a recognized credential that can really matter for career growth.
That makes sense. While you can go other routes, a solid educational foundation often provides a more recognized and perhaps robust pathway.
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay, so we've dug into critical infrastructure cybersecurity and the booming field of AI engineering. Now, let's zoom out again and think about the future of tech more broadly. We looked at that Reddit discussion about what might be the next big topic in tech. What were some key takeaways there? Any consensus?
It was interesting. There was definitely a prevailing feeling of skepticism towards some recent hype cycles, particularly the metaverse and NFTs.
Yeah, the buzz seems to have faded on those.
Right. The general vibe among the commenters was that these probably aren't the next major transformative forces, at least not in their current forms.
Okay. What about more futuristic stuff, like quantum computing? Seemed like mixed views on its near-term impact, didn't it?
Absolutely. Some people felt quantum computing is still mostly hype, lacking real practical uses for the average person anytime soon. They see it mainly as a tool for heavy-duty data crunching and science and research, supercomputer stuff, as one person put it.
Right.
But others warned against underestimating its long-term potential, drawing parallels to early doubts about needing lots of data storage back in the day.
So, a debate about the timeline and how much it'll affect daily life. What about humanoid robots? That always comes up in future tech talks.
Humanoid robots were definitely discussed. Opinions varied on whether they're practical compared to more specialized non-humanoid robots for specific jobs.
The Roomba versus C-3PO argument.
Sort of, yeah. Some argue that while a human-like form might be good for working in environments already designed for humans, more optimized, maybe weird-looking designs could be more efficient for certain tasks. But there was also acknowledgement that maybe humanoid is needed initially just to fit into our world.
That classic trade-off, versatility versus specialization. Now, one topic I found really interesting was this idea of proving that something is real. Authenticity verification. Why did that pop up as a potential big trend?
Well, given where we are now with the internet, how easy it is to create and spread misinformation, deepfakes, AI content that looks real.
Yeah, it's getting hard to tell.
Exactly. So the ability to reliably verify if digital information or assets are authentic where they came from becomes increasingly critical. One commenter described the current internet pretty bluntly, highlighting this growing need for trust and verification. This fundamental need to establish trust in a potentially fake digital world could really drive innovation in tech that provides proof of origin and authenticity.
That's a really sharp point for our current times. What about augmented reality glasses? Were they seen as the next big thing soon?
AR glasses got mentioned as a contender. Some people imagine them being more convenient than smartphones or current VR headsets, maybe blending digital and physical worlds seamlessly. But there was also a fair bit of skepticism about whether the tech is really there yet, and if they're truly on the verge of widespread adoption. It still seems a bit clunky or niche to some.
So maybe more cautious optimism on AR glasses for now. But one thing that seemed like a constant thread in that Reddit chat was the idea that AI will just continue to be central to almost everything new in tech.
That was a very strong prevailing view, yeah. Many people think AI will remain a foundational technology, like the internet, or PCs were, just powering and enabling innovations across the board.
Like the engine driving other tech.
Exactly. One commenter made a great analogy, suggesting we're still in the early days of AI. Maybe like the early internet, we can expect huge transformations still to come.
So AI as the bedrock for a lot of future tech. Were there any other specific potential trends people were speculating about on Reddit?
Yes, several other interesting ideas came up. Some mentioned more sophisticated humanoid robots, maybe operated remotely by humans for complex tasks initially. An increase in access to quantum computing power and the knock-on effects for encryption and security.
Quantum breaking encryption, yeah.
Right. And the wider use of advanced AI language models in businesses to automate more processes.
Yeah.
More speculative, longer-term ideas included things like organic-based computing.
Wow.
Big improvements in interface velocity, making tech interactions much faster and smoother, and advances in nanotechnology.
Oh, and a really important point someone raised was the need to make AI itself more energy efficient as these models get bigger and hungrier for power.
Energy efficiency in AI, that's a huge one as AI scales up. And this concept of transhumanism with smart glasses as expandable storage for the brain, that sounds straight out of science fiction.
It does lean that way, but it reflects this growing interest in tech that could potentially augment our own cognitive abilities. The idea of having instant access to information, enhanced memory, it's definitely compelling to some.
A brain upgrade.
Sort of. And even further out, terahertz wavelength tech was mentioned for potentially super high bandwidth communication and computing. Okay, some really far out possibilities there. It's fascinating to see what people are thinking about, but it sounds like even with all these potential new directions, AI is really expected to stay front and center.
Exactly. While there's debate and uncertainty about timelines for things like the metaverse or quantum's impact, there seems to be a strong consensus that AI will continue to be a dominant, enabling force, shaping and driving many of the next big things in tech for the foreseeable future. Oh, and one more thing from Reddit. the idea of a space resurgence.
Space resurgence.
Yeah, driven by lower launch costs, opportunities for global connectivity, maybe defense tech. People seem more excited about that than, say, colonizing Mars anytime soon.
Interesting contrast. Okay, this has been a really insightful deep dive. We've covered the critical need for strong cybersecurity for our vital infrastructure, the rise of AI engineering as potentially part of the solution, and this glimpse into future tech where AI seems poised to remain central.
And it all just underlines how interconnected everything is becoming. As AI gets woven deeper into our critical infrastructure, the huge question we have to wrestle with is, how do we make sure it's secure and ethically deployed? How do we protect our most essential systems and data?
Right.
And how will these other emerging tech trends like quantum or space tech further shape both the challenges and the potential solutions?
That's a powerful and really important question to leave people thinking about. It's clear these are dynamic fields, changing fast, and it's more crucial than ever for all of us to stay informed and really consider the implications for our future. We definitely encourage you to keep exploring these topics and think about how they might impact your own lives and work. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.